the business or the political structure of Christianity has infiltrated everything and become an ugly beast. And that's not Christianity. That is not Christianity.
No, and that is something else entirely different. That is something that is probably more akin to the end times and the twisting of the message of the church, the twisting of how we think, engage, and interact, because what those aspects of Christianity, in air quotes, does is find power. Find people who they can subject into their rise of power. Welcome to the 42 Podcast, where we discuss life together, looking for answers to life, the universe, and, well, everything else. Here are your hosts, Rob and Lindsay.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, Lindsay. How you doing?
I am doing well, very well, on this fine Saturday morning.
So in the past week since we've talked, the end has begun, but it really hasn't begun, has it?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, we've just started talking about the end, and I guess I kind of want to open with something that's a neat little, it's not neat's not the right word, obsessive little rabbit trail that I always go down in April time frame. Okay, so this podcast is up at the beginning of April.
Okay.
And have you ever heard of Chernobyl?
Yes.
What do you know about Chernobyl?
Nuclear accident. The people that live there, you still can't live near there.
It is the largest nuclear accident to date, where a reactor 4 at the Chernobyl power complex went boom! And yeah, that happened on April 26, 1986. And it always sticks in my memory because I was born April 26th, 1985. So at that 1 year mark, a power plant kind of went boom.
Yeah.
And growing up with your father reminding you of that every year, because it was actually, he was traveling in Connecticut for work when that happened. So he missed my first birthday, and then, the news starts coming out. Oh, this power plant blew up. We're all gonna die.
Yeah.
It was a world-ending event, and that changed his view of family and, being around as a father. And that's something that he strived for with me and the rest of my siblings, of being there because of that. But it's also put this, weird little obsessive point in my life that I every April I go through, I reread stuff, I watch some documentaries, I don't know.
Interesting. There's a show, I think, now called Chernobyl. Have you seen it?
It was on HBO. It was a 5-part miniseries about roughly that year of explosion to uncovering how it happened, the trials, what happened to the people. So yes, I have seen it. It's good. I really enjoyed it. Again, this is just kind of one of those areas that I get a little obsessive in research. But one of the interesting things, and I'm using this as that, left turn opening. Oh wait, what's he talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you know one of the ways that Chernobyl is sometimes, it's not always correct, but sometimes translated, it's a bit of a controversy?
What?
Wormwood.
Really?
Interesting.
Interesting.
Any reason why that name sticks out to you?
Well, yes, because in Revelation, the mountain that falls into the sea is called Wormwood, and it turns all the water poisonous, and all the animals die. Just that.
And one part of the Chernobyl disaster was them actually trying to stop was them actually trying to stop the molten uranium from hitting the water table, which would have turned the waters in that region and the Pripyat, the river, and the Baltic Sea
Mm-hmm.
bitter and dangerous and killed most of the life.
Ha, that is interesting.
It's one of those neat little what if could have.
Yeah.
But
Interesting.
yeah. But the translation of it as wormwood is a little controversial. The tie-in of, again, on the kind of, I'll call them fringe prophets, because I don't hold much value to them.
Right.
They've looked at it and been like, oh, look, this is where we're at in the end times, because wormwood happened, and it's...
Yeah.
Did it really?
Yeah. It's tricky because you want to... Okay, so we're not going to take that literally then about the mountain, but do we take the part about all the animals dying literally, you know?
Well, but even then, I mean, the mountain, I mean, what would John's perspective have been if he is seeing this literally and he's seeing this huge building, something that he would not have had words for, go boom, and explode?
Yeah.
Because and this is, I guess this is the point where we should offer a precaution to our dear listeners. We're going to jump into speculatives. We're not going to make any true hardcore predictions. We are not prophets. We are not answers to how, when, where, why. We're just kind of jumping into revelations and enjoying the speculative question of the prophecy, but looking to trust.
Looking to trust? What do you
Well,
mean?
trust in God, in that he's got it all figured out in the end, and all we have to do is go, okay.
Okay.
He's got it.
Yeah. Right.
That's my stance.
My favorite part of Revelation was always the letters at the beginning. Because I figured, so probably everybody can kind of find themselves in one of those letters. Maybe that's what I thought. So I did enjoy that. And I remembered the name of the Antichrist because I read the letters this morning. And it was
Carpathia.
Nikolai. Yeah, Nikolai Carpathia. Yeah, I remembered Nikolai because of the Nicolaitans in one of those letters.
I did remember from last week Carpathia, or however you pronounce it. But I didn't remember the Nikolai, so yeah. And that's out of the Left Behind series, which was, that was... It's really weird to say that was gaining popularity just about 20-some years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of makes you feel old a bit.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it does.
I haven't hit 40 yet, but it's looming.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of, wow. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
But, no, yeah. So, yeah, the letters are actually beautiful, and I do love... I love how there's kind of that... I don't want to keep using invitation, but there's that resounding finding yourself in them. Almost an accusation of where we've fallen short, where we've done well, but where we've failed individually and corporately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
I agree.
So I guess, we finished with... Last week we were having a conversation about how the church engages with revelations and kind of in an almost obsessive nature. Jumping in and allowing ourselves to be the hero of the action movie that we perceive it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess this week I just want to jump into it and walk around in it for a bit and be two buddies sitting in a bar and saying, well, what is it? What questions do we have? What moments give us pause? What are thoughts that we have on it? We finished with how the end result has to be a trust, a hope in God, because he's restoring what was broken.
Mm-hmm.
And how I look at it is Genesis begins it, Revelations ends it.
Right.
We've got these nice two little bookends, and it's what was broken in the garden is now restored at the end of Revelations. That's how I view it.
Yeah, I like that part a lot. The tree at the end, how there's a tree at the beginning, there's a the cross in the middle, and there's a tree at the end. And that heals the nations, which is super, super cool. I love that.
When we were in that young adult program, did you ever go to Longwood Gardens?
I think so. I thought it was boring because I...
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was pretty,
Okay.
but then, but yeah. I didn't bring a book. I didn't have a book with me.
All right, well, maybe I should rephrase this question. When you think of a garden, when you think of what that pre-fall garden and what that post-fall garden would be, what do you imagine? What do you think of?
I honestly can picture a tree all by itself and running water going by it, like near a river, and just like open pasture. I don't know. My imagination, I guess, doesn't really want to explore that very much for some reason, but yeah.
I feel like you're describing one of the covers, and I can't remember which one it is, to one of the Chronicles of Narnia, where there's this like lone tree standing on a slight hill in a pasture with a stream.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. It's one of the older book covers. But I feel like that's what you're trying to describe.
Yeah. I don't know. Some of my coolest memories as a kid were in a pasture that we weren't supposed to be in. So maybe that's why that's in my head.
See, I always imagine kind of this, the center of it is a clearing, but there's heavy woods all around, and there's deep woods, there's a stream, there's mountains, just close enough that you could get to them, but they're not overwhelmingly close. But then the beauty of it, the going into the micro scale of it, I picture something like what you would experience at Longwood, where there are flowers, there are smells of, deep earth, and just this rich, sweet sense of blooming all around.
Yeah. And food. I hope there's lots of food. Lots of things to eat. Lots of fruit and cool things.
I can only imagine what that'll be. That'll be good.
I hope there's a cupcake tree. That would be super sweet.
That would be something. All right. A cupcake tree, and I'll take rivers of scotch.
Right?
Yeah. A waterfall of scotch. I think there's beauty that is lost in the upheaval that is Revelations of, okay, we should start with looking at what the garden was, or what we hope and what we think God will do in restoration. Because when we have that as kind of the end goal, it keeps everything else in Revelations in perspective. Because it's just getting to that.
Right. Yeah.
Or another perspective, and you've done this at least 4 times. Childbirth.
Yeah. What about it?
Yeah. Yeah, where that's something used in Scripture as well, to even look at these end times as
right. As
childbearing.
A terrible, terrible, awful thing, but then you forget.
Right there at the end, you're like, oh.
Well, you don't forget, but it's like it's nothing compared to that super emotional holding your baby for the first time.
Mel, when we had Ray, our first son, she was in labor for 24 hours before they decided to do an emergency C-section. And I mean, that's the perspective I have from that, where it's okay, it's that 24-hour period where I got bit, I got snarled at, I got yelled at.
She bit you?
She was having a contraction. She's going to be mad I shared this story, but she was having a contraction, and she started like clawing at the IVs in her arm. I was like, no, don't. And then she bites me.
Wow. Go Mel.
It wasn't like skin breaking bite, but it was like, I'm gonna kill you. And
Oh
again,
man.
it's kind of how I enter into Revelations, where it's okay. This is quite possibly going to be painful,
Yeah.
indirectly.
It's really apt because I think Revelation is such a horror show and chaotic and confusing and what's going on, what's literal, what's not literal, or I don't know. I don't even know how to approach that, but if we're going to go with that metaphor, you go to cloud cuckoo land when you're having a baby. You are not mentally present. It's crazy. So maybe the comparison's really apt.
Yeah, and as a bystander, I mean, I wasn't part of active labor, other than being there to support and cheerlead, and yeah, I mean, it really is just even from the bystander perspective. That's dead on.
Mm.
What we're looking at and hoping for, the end result is beautiful, wonderful, and restoring, but to get there,
Yeah.
it's gonna be messy.
Let's just take for a second what you said about John not understanding what he saw. What if he
Yeah.
had seen a building falling into the ocean, which is total metaphor, but still he wouldn't have known a nuclear reactor if he'd seen one. And so what else translates poorly, from to today?
Oh, so many things. Well, I guess
Everything.
I guess there's a question that we should ask if we're going to go down this trail, just kind of start with it. Do you think, and there's two parts to this question,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that God took John when he was on the island of Patmos and took him forward and showed him things from the perspective of standing on the earth? Or took him to heaven and showed him perspectives looking down at the earth as things were going?
Well, I think that's a good question. That's a good question because first you have to ask, is heaven a geographical place? Or is it like a dimension or something like that? So where is heaven? And the second thing is, I think he was taken there because it talks about the throne room and the elders around the throne and the hosts of heaven. It starts there. It may not stay there. He may not have stayed there the whole time, but yeah.
So, my view is that heaven itself is not like a geographical place, but a dimensional half a second off kind of place.
Right.
Where it's just within reach, but that veil is always present. There are places and times where I think it wears thin, and that ties into miracles, and that ties into things that God is doing and working in moments where he allows that veil to be thin,
Mm-hmm.
which is an entirely different discussion. But I think heaven is just kind of that half second away, that one heartbeat away between us and...
Yeah. I've been watching Fringe, and it's my first run through the whole thing. I've never seen...
Really?
Yeah, I've never seen the whole thing.
It's really good. It's really good.
I like the idea of another universe beyond ours, like coexisting with ours, not next to, but like you snap your finger and it's like a different version of you. It's a different version of the world if you had made different choices. But what if heaven is sort of like that, where it's like coexisting with us at this moment, which would be really hard to explain to John or anybody like 50 years ago even, so.
Well, and that's how I view it, is kind of like that, where it is with us, but there's just this little bit of dissynchronization between us and it. And these are sci-fi terms that we're using to talk about it, but I really believe there's that spiritual aspect to it that is, God connects with us through that he's the God of time and space. He's the God of sci-fi.
Yeah, really.
Sorry. One of my students sent me a TikTok, I think it was this week, it might have been late last week, and it was a TikToker saying, "Oh, there's a full moon on Easter, you know what that means?"
Nothing.
No. Well, yeah, there's always a full moon on Easter, or around Easter. But the TikTok was, oh, it means werewolf Jesus.
Oh boy.
I laugh, but God is the God of time, space, and sci-fi, and using those terms to explain it, I think, is just us trying to give the best explanation our little minds can get, and I look forward to the final revelation of how it all works.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right. So back to John. Wow, we went away a bit.
How can you not go away a bit with this conversation? I don't know.
I know, and that is the beauty of kind of walking into Revelations and not looking at it and saying we're going to come up with hardcore answers, but how's God going to do this? What are some of the questions? What are some of the beautiful little intricacies that are there that allow us to look at what the horror of the moment is, but also go, God's hand is in it.
Yeah.
So John is shown these things, either from the perspective of heaven or from being taken forward in time, which ties great into the end of John, the gospel, of, if I want my beloved disciple, I'm paraphrasing, if I want him to be around until the end of the age, he'll be here.
Yeah, that's always what I thought he was talking about, was he did see Jesus come back, because in Revelation he comes back. I think that's what that means. Is he was telling the truth, but it was sort of a wink and a nod sort of thing.
Yeah, but there's also a part of me that just kind of goes, and this is purely speculative. I don't have anything that's like, oh wow, look, we can. But there's a part of me it's like, wouldn't it be kind of neat if John was still around today? Just to think about John weaving his way through history for 2,000 plus years.
Yes, that's a good story right there.
And you hit the key point. It's a good story. It's a neat little, just what would that look like to witness all of modern history waiting for the end?
Yeah. That'd be really sad and really cool.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, you would love and lose all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a degree of that just would have to be maddening. So, anyway, neat little rabbit trail of thought. But yes, John, and now seeing things that he does not understand as a man of the transition of time.
Yeah.
Looking forward in time.
Yep.
What are some of those things that you wonder about? You wonder with his sight, his vision.
The monsters that are described. What is up with the monsters? Is that literal? Is that like genetically modified creatures? Is it some, what is that all about? There's a dragon.
Yeah.
There's a dragon and things like that. So that's kind of why I'm thinking it's not literal, because of the dragon waiting for the woman to have the baby. And, like, he sweeps half of the stars out of the sky. Like, that's not possible. That's not possible. So, that's where I think...
What if the stars that he's seeing are the satellites?
Yeah.
I mean, right now you've got Elon Musk who's putting Starlink up there. And, I mean, that's...
What if it's a fleet of ships or... Yeah, something like that. Like, yeah, why not?
Yeah, I mean, you wipe out the satellites. There are a bunch of stars that are coming out of the sky. You're crippling communications and information across the globe.
Yeah. And that would cause a lot of destruction if you had, like, an army full of ships or spaceships or shuttles or whatever you want to call them raining down from the sky. If they, like, stop working all of a sudden, that would be carnage. That would be really bad. That could be.
Or maybe a nuclear power plant that's up in the sky that falls down into the ocean. Oh, wait.
Yeah, maybe.
Back to Wormwood.
Maybe.
Now, and I think that is really a big question. I mean, one of the I can't remember. It's one of the flying ones. He describes it. It's the locust-like one that has the like face of a lion, or I'd have to find that, but kind of sit with that and go, that sounds like it might be a helicopter.
Huh. Except it bites people.
Hmm?
It bites people, and I think they're poisoned and want to die. Isn't that the same creature? That
I thought that one.
they get bitten, and they go through something because of it, and they long to die because of it, which kind of sounds like a plague. Have you, like in Mission Impossible 2, when they talk about chimera?
Mm-hmm.
And they sort of draw a parallel between the chimera and the disease or the plague. So it could be a plague. That's kind of my thought.
Ooh. Entirely off topic.
Yes.
I just got a text message. You did too, since it's in the group messaging.
Mm-hmm.
Just got it. We're doing an interview in 2 episodes with an old friend of ours. And he just confirmed the day and time, so yay.
Yay.
We have an interview coming up for the 42 podcast that should be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Again, they're going to challenge me on my ability to engage with worship and music.
Yeah.
I'm making faces.
I think we should discuss worship in general too, like what the heck's going on.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm excited to talk to him about that.
Oh, there are lots of questions, lots of fun things we're going to actually be jumping into with that topic. And it's going to be a good conversation with him. We haven't announced who we're having on yet. I think we should keep that under the hat until then.
Okay.
But yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be good to talk with him, to have a conversation on worship. So we'll call this the mid-break then. And while you're listening to us, would you go and take a moment, rate and review us on the podcast service you're listening to? It really helps us. It helps us get out there to more people. It helps us grow and to learn what you would like us to talk about, what you would like us to engage with as podcasters. Also, feel free to follow us on social media at the 42 Podcast on Facebook and the 42 Podcast on Twitter. And if you feel like emailing us and letting us know some things you'd love for us to talk about, the email is badtheologyproductions@gmail.com. So jump in, add your voice, because you are an important part of what we are doing. And yeah, we appreciate and love hearing from you guys. So thank you.
Good job.
Ever feel like one of those 1950s sudden breaks in commercials? This show is brought to you by Fixident. I don't know, it's the first thing that came to my mind. But yeah, so you've got those beasts who, what are they? And the different descriptions throughout. Could he have been seeing helicopters, tanks? Could he have been seeing technology that we're not even, aware of yet? What does that look like? So, and that's a neat little spot to go as well, in just that speculative and looking at what our technology is and pondering what someone from 2,000 years ago would have thought of where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even questioning, going back and looking at the 1980s, 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what everyone thought would be the mark of the beast?
A barcode? I don't know.
Barcode. They're going to put barcodes on us, and that's going to be it.
Yeah.
What about today? What do people think the mark of the beast is?
Yeah, or is it literal? Is it literal? And how is it selling your soul to get one? If it's just a barcode, or it's just a chip in your skin, or like with your bank and with your banking information and your medical files or something, how is that selling your soul? Like, what part of that is selling your soul? I don't get that.
I think it's I don't think it's going to be the actual getting of. I'm trying to think how to phrase this.
It's like you've bought something. You've bought into something.
Yeah, you've bought the ideology of, where that ideology has to be in control of or moving towards control of. And if you don't, then you're out. I mean, kind of part of how I look at that is what happened with the rise of the Nazi regime,
Mm-hmm.
where, I mean, they used labels with people from undesirables to those who were okay. You know, those who were good, who were sympathetic, they had an armband. They bought the ideology.
Right.
Those who weren't were given a lesser. And that's kind of how I look at it in perspective, where it's going to be, okay, I have something that sets me apart as I'm good, and something that sets me apart as entirely culturally other. Go ahead.
So there's this part in Ezekiel or Jeremiah, I can't remember which one, but it's a God gave him a vision of an angel going into the temple first and giving everybody a mark. And then when the Babylonians or whoever came, whoever didn't have a mark were killed. So this is obviously not literal. That's obviously not literal. Then later in Revelation, it also talks about angels giving us, or whoever doesn't have the mark, also get marks so that they don't get hurt or they don't get destroyed by the plagues and stuff. So that's kind of what makes me believe that it's more ideological, like you're saying, and not a literal mark or a literal thing that is done to you. I think it's some kind of transaction of, like you're saying. But I'm not sure it's an actual mark or even a chip or anything physical.
With where we're going with technology, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a chip. But I think it has to be, I guess I'll go there. So, some of the things that I've seen online has been the idea that the vaccine for COVID-19 is a chip.
That's ridiculous.
And yes, it is. I really hold it's ridiculous. Just in the premise that if the government really wanted to track me, if they really wanted to know everything, I've already offered it up because I carry a small little black box that has all of my internet history, phone history, microphones, cameras, everything they need to bug me. Oh, right here, conveniently in this package.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't have it, I feel disconnected.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't need to put a chip in me. I'm already voluntarily carrying it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
With like the vaccine, with some people who are saying, oh, it's a chip, it's it's going to be part of the mark, you got to get this. And I don't agree with this one, but the COVID passport,
Mm-hmm.
I get what they're trying to do, but that's another conversation.
Yeah. You can't accidentally sell your soul to Satan. It's not an accident. So if you,
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and with where we're at in Pennsylvania, they opened up the vaccine to educators, and 2 weeks ago, Mel was able to go and get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And in those 2 weeks, I have not noticed that my wife is any more evil than she has been already. I mean, she's a redhead, so we're already running that line, but in no way has she, pulled an exorcist. She's not puking green and her head's not spinning, and
No horns
she's fine.
Or cloven hooves or anything.
No horns, no cloven hooves. She keeps bragging about having superior immunity. Okay. But, so when I look at it, I think the mark has to be something that is a willful choice of ideology.
Yeah.
Of, I'm going to choose to be an adherent and apologist for this mindset and ideology.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the core of it, where it's delineating those who are Christian, who are adherent apologists, who follow Christ.
Yep. Uh-huh.
I'm not even going to try that again, but they follow Christ. And that's their ideology.
Mm-hmm.
Against those who follow something else. So, Uh, Which brings me, and this one wigged me out at the beginning of all of the pandemic stuff. I was reading an article from, I don't remember where, but it was like the Israeli Times or something, and they were talking with a conservative rabbi who was saying, "Oh, the Christ is going to be revealed." And it went into depth a little bit further, and it was something I had never considered, but the Judaic people, I know they're still looking for the Messiah. They're still looking for the Christ. But rabbinical teachers, there's a sect of them who hold that every generation has a Christ. That there's a Christ within every generation who is just waiting for the right time to be revealed. Waiting for, part of their beliefs is that some of them say that, he'll be revealed when we practice Sabbath perfectly, everyone. Well, the first time that everyone synchronously practices Sabbath perfectly, the Christ will be revealed. Or, Christ will be revealed at the moment of most need for the people. And it hit me where it's, wow, I knew they're still looking, but I never considered that they're looking every generation and considering that there's someone in that generation who is a Messiah.
That is interesting.
When I read that, it just kind of wigged me out because I was like, whoa. Because from my perspective, looking for that Christ is where it all goes downhill.
Yeah.
That's the beginning, man. That's...
Yeah.
Have you not read the New Testament? You're bringing in the end, but I also understand that because that's a piece that does have to happen.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that? On the idea that there's we consider it an antichrist, but a Christ in every generation, one who is waiting to be revealed.
I think there's been an antichrist in a lot of generations, like anybody in Europe that's tried to take over the world. I think that is I think that's trying to be something. Like, if trying to take over the world, I think, is one of the things that the Antichrist will probably want to do. Even if it's not demonic.
I'm going to throw a joke at you, all right?
Sure.
And forgive me if you've heard this, but have you ever heard about why God let the Scotsman invent Scotch?
No.
Think of all the European nations that have tried to conquer the known world at different points. Okay? Yeah, it's almost everybody but Scotland. God knew that if the Scots actually rose up to try and conquer the world, that would be the end.
Yeah.
Give them Scotch. They'll be okay.
Well, they took one look at you guys and were like, oh, nah, we don't.
Build a wall, keep them out.
We don't.
Hadrian's Wall. Whatever they're doing up there, we don't want that.
We're good.
Which is why I'm proud to be Scottish. Yeah, we're all insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there have been, I agree with that, where there has been, and it was tying that view of Christianity, where I do hold that the spirit of the Antichrist has been on the earth in some form since Christ left. And I mean, he even said there would be those who would rise up and say they are the Christ. They are the Messiah, but don't follow them. And so my view has always been that, where there's always some level of Antichrist somewhere, somehow, some way. It's working. It's trying to find. If God is the only one who knows the day, the time, and the hour, then this spirit is always working because it doesn't know. It's always trying to find.
Yeah, what if it's always trying to institute the end, to take over the world and get things going, but it gets stopped, And
I entirely agree with that. And this is the point where I would also say, now there's a danger to this, and there's a razor's edge conversation that we now walk, because when we look and we say, oh, look, the spirit of the Antichrist is always there, we begin to see kind of that demon behind every doorpost that,
Right, yeah.
oh, that's the Antichrist. Oh, oh, the vaccine is the mark. Slow your roll.
Yeah. I think it's like a macro sense in a large
Yeah.
scale, not in the details, not like at the grocery store, but in the way that chess pieces are moving on a grand scale, on a cosmic scale.
The micro scale of it, that infringing on every piece of your life will come. But right now, it's just trying to find that first opening. And it's found it in different pieces in history, again, going back to the Nazis, going back to different Roman empires, going back to the Crusades. It's found these moments to exploit time and history, but never to the full-blown scale of Revelations. That's how I view it.
Yeah.
And again, there's danger in how we interact with that, because we can go crazy and everything is.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's no way to live.
No, it's not. It's, yeah. Because it really does. It divides you between, because you're trying to put the division of us versus them, those who have the mark and those who don't,
Right.
at a time when it doesn't apply. You're trying to end the harvest, the figurative harvest spoken in Scripture, when there's still work to be done.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I wonder how this book was received initially. The letter was received. Did they think they knew what was happening, or did they try to put faces to all these beasts? And
I think they must have. I mean, there's always been kind of a talk that the apostles thought that it would be, again, going back to the ending of John, that it would be in John's lifetime kind of idea, that, the end has to happen in John's lifetime.
mm-hmm.
But it didn't. So I think there must have been kind of that view for a period of time initially, and then every generation has applied it in its way somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was to manipulate, or to strike fear, or to just look at it and hope, which are the primary three interactions that we have with Revelations: fear, manipulation, and hope.
Yeah.
Fear and manipulation being the worst of it, but hope being the hope for how we look at it.
Yeah.
We have talked really broadly about Revelations. Is there anywhere you want to jump in specifically? Any thought? I mean...
Not really. Sorry.
No, you're fine. How do you feel about this conversation? Because you were a little kind of leery about it at first.
This has been good. This has been a good conversation, yeah. I'm cool.
No, you're always cool.
Yeah, this is good.
How does this compare with other times you've interacted with Revelations and viewed it from past studies?
Well, there's no chart in front of me right now. There's no, here's a list of all the things the bowls do, and this is what the scroll seals do, and this is what the trumpets do, and let's compare them, and exhaustive printouts, and I don't know.
I think there's value in looking at what each of those do. I do. But again, I find it, you're going into that kind of danger zone of how much is me applying my worldviews and my thoughts and hopes towards the end against what's in Scripture. At least that's how my head, again, plays that out of what does that look like? What does that do and interact and feel like?
Yeah.
Because we weren't there. We're not sitting in the throne room having it revealed to us. It's still a giant mystery to me. So to me, looking and saying with any solid definition of this is how it will be, I don't get it. and I've always struggled with that of, is it really how it's going to be, or is it how you want to translate it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all speculative, I think. I don't think anybody could say they really know.
How many apocalypses have you lived
I
through?
know. Several.
Yeah. Yeah. Addie was born in 2012. The world was going to end in 2012. No, wait, was that 2020?
2012, yeah.
Which translation of the well, no, but which translation of the Mayan calendar are we going
Oh,
with?
right. Yeah.
You didn't see that one where it was, oh, no, Mayan calendar's off by 8 years. It was actually supposed to be 2020.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't believe any of that stuff. When I don't pay any attention. I think if this stuff is going to happen the way it says, it's just going to be everybody's going to be surprised. Otherwise it wouldn't be a deception. Otherwise there would be no deception. You know, because it makes it sound like most of the church isn't going to make it. A lot of the church isn't going to make it. And if that's the case, I think that there's got to be something really sweet to this deal for people to buy it. You know?
So, I'm going to say something that may frustrate some of our listeners. And you and I had kind of a conversation with politics. I know I'm not going to make you mad, but one of the things I'm looking at right now is definitely the reconciliation that is happening within the evangelical world of those who were hardcore Trump supporters, who put a lot of, there's no other word for it other than faith, into the agendas that he had as president and what he would do for the Christian world. And I look at that and I go, isn't that kind of the deception that we should be on the lookout for? Someone who comes with these attractive words, but his life doesn't.
And it wasn't
show
even
it.
that hard. I mean, the things that he's been recorded saying, and then people make him this religious figure. How hard was it? That wasn't hard at all to get people in that bandwagon. So imagine if you got a guy with a reputation like Obama, or a good reputation, who actually is a good speaker and is decent man. What happens when he looks like that? And he claims to be a Christian. What happens then?
I don't know. I don't. But I mean, I'm just watching the reconciliation, the divisions that are happening now between what. Yeah, I struggle with that. I do, because it's.
What's happening?
There was a lot of deception. There's a bit of a division within the evangelical world right now, because there were a lot of people who kind of stood up and put their faith and their ministry behind the idea of Trump, and Trump being the protector of, the one who would be at the forefront of the values of Christianity within the political system. Not exactly espousing and living them out, but politically, I would gain power and influence because he's putting priority behind my beliefs.
Yeah.
And there's a disconnect between what Scripture says, what Trump did, what Trump does, and politics. So there are a bunch of deep divides between that. And so now there's this kind of reconciliation that's happening in the evangelical church world of those who put a lot of power into what they were saying and trying to kind of tie themselves to Trump and his rise, but also kind of, faltering with his fall, and what does that look like with post January 6th, and, how much was control, how much was just tying faith to power.
You're saying reconciliation. Do you mean reconciliation, or do you mean something else?
I do mean reconciliation. That's kind of the end goal, but it's reconciliation should be the end goal, but it is, how do you get there? How do you get there from those whose faith and politics are so closely tied that you can't separate them? And so I look at this and I see the grand deception that is talked about in Revelations, where it's, okay, someone who's attractive in spirit but is rotten at the core, and it's, are we not seeing that? And I'm not making a commentary on the politics of Trump or any of that, because my politics and my faith I try to keep as separate as I can. But within the church world, we tied ourselves, not parts of the church world tied themselves to the rise of power of an individual who was not a good representation of the church. And now it's reaping the fruits of that, trying to reconcile with that side of the church and the church structure and those who were a part of the church in a way, but kind of... so it's this. I went to Lancaster Bible College and Capital Seminary. Good programs, good college, good place to get a degree, highly recommend it. But there were some others who I've connected with over the years, and they went to Liberty University. There was a power structure that got tied to Trump through Jerry Falwell Jr., and his collapse, and kind of Liberty having to wash their hands, back away, and go, oops. And again, that came into tying ourselves to a rising power when faith, when Christianity, when the church should never seek power in that way, my opinion.
Yeah, and it's been this way for a long time. Christians, there's this movie called The Family on Netflix. It's also a book.
Yep.
It's ugly. It's ugly, and I can't stand it. I cannot stand how the business or the political structure of Christianity has infiltrated everything and become an ugly beast. And that's not Christianity. That is not Christianity.
No, and that is something else entirely different. That is something that is probably more akin to the end times and the twisting of the message of the church, the twisting of how we think, engage, and interact, because what those aspects of Christianity, in air quotes, does is find power. Find people who they can subject into their rise of power.
I have a crazy statement to make. And
Uh-oh.
Tell me what you think about this. What if real Christianity has to be grassroots, or it's not real Christianity? What if the minute it becomes something other than grassroots, it becomes something else? Because Ravi Zachariah is a good place to and I'm not saying he wasn't a Christian, because who the heck knows? That's not my business. But I think when you have a global ministry, you get in trouble. I don't think anybody should have a global ministry. Sorry, I gave you a question.
No. I want to say yes, but no. And maybe this is me trying to have my cake and eat it too.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see a flaw in my logic in this, if you see an area where I'm off, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
But how I look at what the church and what it should be, yes, the church needs to be that grassroots. It does. We need to be moving out into communities, not on global scales. We need to support those who are global missionaries, who are going and trying to do grassroots in a new region. I'll never not support a missionary who's trying to do that.
Right.
But we need to be a community-based, grassroots home for healing. Spiritual wounds of all kinds. The broken, the downhearted. It's not...
You do.
It is...
You do.
Right.
And the person next to you does, and the person next to them does. And that's what I mean by grassroots. They're, as opposed to somebody, it getting corporate, it becoming a business. If there's a business model, watch out. Watch out.
But then the counter to this, the part where I kind of wrestle with it a bit, is that there's also value to, the only word I can think of is corporate structure, because that's a word we've been tossing around, but that's not how I want to, community structure of churches, there we go. Where if we look at an individual church and say at a micro scale, it's a grassroots of that community, okay? So this church and this community is a grassroots. At a macro scale, that individual church should be connected to other churches.
Right.
And we see that in Acts, where we have the churches who are all connected through the disciples.
Right. It's very fluid in the New Testament. Yeah.
So when you have that connection, then what you're doing is you're also providing accountability for your church, for your grassroots.
Yep. You're not wrong.
And that's why I kind of struggle on pause, because it's, yes, individual churches, grassroots, but you need to also go out on macro level, because you need to have that continued accountability, which is why we have denominations. Love them, hate them. Those denominations connect churches and provide accountability. But that's also where we start to lose structure, because that's getting into that kind of corporate level.
I don't think it should get up there, though. I think churches can provide, and when I say church, I don't mean a building. I mean like a group of 8 people who love Jesus. That's what I mean. You have a church that, is together, and they go to another place and be the church with another 8 people. I don't think there needs to be like a boss over those 16 people making sure everything's nice between the two groups. I think if everybody's doing their job, I don't think you need that. If you have the prophets being prophets, and if you have the evangelists being evangelists, and dare I say, apostles being the apostles, I don't think you need corporate. If everybody's doing their job, you shouldn't need a business model.
And you're right. Not arguing with you on that. I do think that the denominational structure is the best attempt to continue that arc, and we falter with it in a lot of ways. We do. But I do think there are churches and synods and dioceses and places that are doing good to support a community. I do think there are denominational struggles that are reflective of that failure. I do think there are denominational struggles that are reflective of trying to get back to that grassroots. It's always going to be, not always going to be, it has always been and will always be a struggle. And I think we see that in the letters of the New Testament. We see that in the epistles. We see that in, look, this city and this church structure is doing well, but wait, you fail in this, and you need to grow in this. And then, this other city, and they're connected. They're growing, they're holding each other accountable, and there will always be that, but wait, we're failing in this. We haven't done well with this. Which is where I maybe have a little more grace in looking at that kind of corporate structure. So, and I told you this. I guess that was this week, where it was, I work within a church. I work within the smaller scale of that corporate structure, if you will. And I do worry about that at times, where it's, okay, how is my ministry doing? Is there a point where I've sold myself out to the idea of the corporate, or in any way lost that accountability? So that's something that I think needs to constantly be wrestled with and asked, and from people in ministry to people in the larger denominational leadership to
yeah,
because at the core of it, my view is the individual churches in the communities needed to be just trying to do the best they can. Yes, it's a very complex question, and one truly worthy of its own full episode of conversation on church structure, on church form, on denominations, on the heavenly church perspective and the earthly church, and what are we doing?
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Did we solve the world's problems? Yes. We'll just go with yes, we did. We've solved the world's problems. Listen to the 42 podcast. Got it? And share it. 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 Have you shared it yet? Please? I didn't expect us to go down that road. We keep going down that road. That's where you want to go, isn't it?
I'm pretty passionate about it, yeah.
That's really where you want to go.
I want revolution, I guess is really what I want. I think it's in my blood. I'm French. No.
Ah, vive la revolution. I'm Scottish. I just want whiskey.
Yeah.
Scotch, not whiskey. Oh my goodness. Forgive me.
I prefer whiskey myself.
I prefer Scotch. Yeah, well, I guess we're going to have to get into that more. So, next week's episode, we're going to talk about our eclectic taste in music and have some fun with that as kind of a preamble for getting into worship. I really want us to talk about music and how it affects us.
Okay.
So I have a sweet, wonderful little girl.
Yes.
Who absolutely loves Frozen.
Okay. Yeah. I can relate.
You know the pains I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. So, in building our family playlist this year, I put a Frozen song in there, but it's a remix that's electronica.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a part of me that's like, I should actually put that in my workout mix. Because it's pumping and it's Let It Go, and I'm like, wow, I actually feel a little weird about this, because, yeah, it's got a good beat. It's not just the Frozen, let it go,
Yeah.
I am one with the wind and snow.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about stuff like that next week, of how music affects us.
As an aside, I can't stand Elsa. I can't stand her. And Anna kicks butt. I love Anna. I would spend all day with her. She's just the coolest. I can't stand Elsa. She's fussy.
Those are some fighting words.
You don't agree? You love Elsa?
I don't love Elsa. But the complexities of Elsa are what make Frozen. And they are...
Well, true. That's what makes it a movie, yeah.
Well, it's not just that. It's what draws out the character of Anna, because if you don't have the brokenness of Elsa, then Anna is this flat two-dimensional character who just wants to fall in love with the first thing that walks by.
Well, yeah.
All right, a gauntlet has been thrown down. We have to have a Frozen episode. Oh, jeez.
Oh, man. Maggie would be so
I will
excited.
bring Adeline in for her expert opinion. Do your daughters have expert opinions?
Oh, she loves Elsa all day long. Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll have to get their thoughts. And at least articulate them as to why Elsa is better or Anna is better. Oh my gosh, we're going to do a Frozen episode.
Maybe a short one.
We'll call it a bonus episode and just toss it in.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways, I gotta go.
We should make that part of a Pixar one. All right. Yeah, anyway, yes. It was a good talk, Lindsay.
Indeed it was.
All right, have a good week.
Have a good one.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the 42 podcast. Please take a moment to like and subscribe, and if you want to join in on the conversation, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter to add your voice to the conversation. Thank you.